Chapter 1, The Dead of Stars. The city of Vaith shimmered like a jewel suspended in the void. Towers of silver and glass rose above the swirling clouds of its atmosphere, lit with neon sigils that pulse in colors only Selani eyes could truly appreciate. Walkways of transparent, crystal-connected spires where traders, debtors, and nobles move like currents in a river, each bound by the guild's laws, each enslaved in its own way. From the balcony of her family's estate, Lyra watched the shuttle descend. Its thrusters rumbled against the balcony rail, rattling her bones. The guild's crest glowed crimson on its hull, a reminder that this visit was not a courtesy. It was a summons. Her mother's hand, thin and trembling, pressed against her back. "Be strong, Lyra. It is the only way." Lyra wanted to believe her, but her chest ached with betrayal. Only last cycle, her father had assured her the debt could be managed. Now, with the guild's enforcers waiting, she was told the truth. The family fortune had long since crumbled, and she was the price to settle what remained. A bride, sold to balance numbers in a ledger. She clenched her fists until her nails cut into her palms. "So this is honor? To sell me like chattel?" Her mother looked away. No answer came. Inside the shuttle, the air was colder, scrubbed of scent and warmth. Two guild clerks, four-eyed and expressionless, guided her into a padded seat. Restraint cuffs clicked softly around her wrists, more symbolic than binding, but humiliating all the same. Through the window, Vaitha's skyline slipped away, its radiant blues fading into the velvet dark of space. Her throat tightened. Tears slid down her cheeks before she could stop them. She brushed them away quickly, unwilling to give the clerk satisfaction. Destination, Arja resolved, one of them intoned in a voice like static. "You will be delivered to your groom." Her groom. The word stung like acid. She had imagined some corpulent Selani lord, skin jeweled and tongue sharp, the kind who collected wives as they did art. But whispers had reached even her. This marriage was different. This time, the guild had bargained her way to a human. Humans were a contradiction. Dismissed as primitives yet courted as mercenaries, their reputation forged in wars too recent to forget. The very idea unsettled her. What kind of creature would demand her hand to settle a debt? The shuttle docked with a metallic groan, and the hum of its engines bled into silence. Magnetic clamps seized them. A ramp extended, spilling light into the cabin. Cool, white, sterile. Lyra's pulse quickened. She straightened her spine, swallowing her fear. If she must be currency, she would not be a broken coin. As she stepped into the corridor of the Argent resolve, her tears dried against the recycled air. Still, the question burned inside her, sharp as a blade. What kind of human waits at the end of this bargain? Chapter 2, The Human Groom. The corridors of the Argent resolve felt like the inside of a machine, polished alloy walls humming with current, dim blue lines pulsing along the floor, as if tracing the heartbeat of the ship itself. Lyra's steps echoed, sharp against the silence, her escorting clerks walking in perfect mechanical rhythm beside her. She smelled ozone and oil, the sterile tang of recycled air, so different from the spice-scented breezes of Vaith. Her cuffs clicked open, and one clerk intoned, "You are delivered. Do not dishonor the guild." Without a bow, without even a glance, they turned and left her standing at the threshold of a chamber. The doors parted. Inside was not the lavish hall she expected. No gilded ceilings, no jeweled thrones. Instead, a modest briefing room. Maps of star systems hovered in holographic suspension, their orbits traced in thin golden lines. The faint vibration of engines thrummed beneath her feet. And there, leaning against a table strewn with data pads, stood her groom. A human. He was taller than she had imagined, broader in the shoulders, dressed not in ceremonial robes, but in a plain uniform of gray and black. A scar cut across his temple, a faint reminder of battles past. His eyes, strikingly pale compared to the deep colors of her people, lifted and locked onto hers. "You must be Lyra," he said. His voice was calm, steady, carrying no hint of triumph or cruelty. Lyra braced herself, chin lifting. "And you are the chain they've fastened to me." Instead of offense, a faint smile touched his lips. "Commander Elias Kane, human military advisor, and apparently your husband." He spread his hands as if to show he carried no weapons. "Though I imagine you didn't volunteer for that." Her throat tightened. She wanted to spit back, to tell him she was no one's prize. But there was something disarming in the way he spoke, as though he recognized her anger instead of dismissing it. His gaze wasn't the hungry, measuring look of a buyer inspecting property. It was curious. "I will make one thing clear," Lyra said, stepping closer so the holographic starlight painted her silver hair in glimmers. "This binding may satisfy their ledgers, but it binds my heart to nothing." Elias inclined his head, as though she had just negotiated terms in a treaty. "I wouldn't expect it to. Contracts can shackle hands, not hearts." That startled her. No Selani lord would have spoken so. Among her people, possession was power, and debt was inheritance. Yet here was a man from a species ridiculed as uncivilized, speaking as though freedom itself were sacred. Her suspicion sharpened, coiling around the edges of her intrigue. "If you do not want me, then why accept me?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because walking away would have condemned you to someone far worse." He leaned against the console again, eyes steady. "I won't pretend this is fair, but I can promise you one thing. I won't treat you as property." The word struck her chest like a spark in dry tinder. She fought to keep her expression still, but her pulse betrayed her, quickening with every beat of the ship's engines. For the first time since the Guild's decree, Lyra felt the faintest tremor of something unfamiliar beneath her fear. Not hope, not yet, but possibility. Chapter 3, Bound in Name, Divided in Heart. The ceremonial dome of the Argent Resolve was designed for spectacle, not sincerity. Its arched glass ceiling revealed the endless sprawl of stars, scattered like jewels across the black. Alien banners, violet, crimson, and gold, hung in suspended gravity, rippling in unseen currents. The hum of the ship's engines resonated beneath the chamber, as though the entire vessel was holding its breath for the binding. Lyra stood in the center of the dais, draped in a shimmering mantle of Selani silk. Its threads caught the light like liquid silver, but to her it felt more like a shroud. Every gaze in the room cut into her, measuring, judging. Selani guild lords with their jeweled necks, clerks with their 4 unblinking eyes, and alien dignitaries from distant systems, each whispering about the Human Groom. Elias approached from the opposite side. No finery adorned him. His uniform was pressed but plain, a metal glinting faintly on his chest, more scar than ornament. His boots echoed against the crystalline floor. To Lyra's surprise, he did not look at the gathered audience, nor at the guild master presiding over the ceremony. His gaze rested only on her, steady, unwavering. Chapter 3, Bound in Name, Divided in Heart. The ceremonial dome of the Argent Resolve was designed for spectacle, not sincerity. Its arched glass ceiling revealed the endless sprawl of stars, scattered like jewels across the black. Alien banners, violet, crimson, and gold, hung in suspended gravity, rippling in unseen currents. The hum of the ship's engines resonated beneath the chamber, as though the entire vessel was holding its breath for the binding. Lyra stood in the center of the dais, draped in a shimmering mantle of Selani silk. Its threads caught the light like liquid silver, but to her it felt more like a shroud. Every gaze in the room cut into her, measuring, judging. Selani guild lords with their jeweled necks, clerks with their 4 unblinking eyes, and alien dignitaries from distant systems, each whispering about the Human Groom. Elias approached from the opposite side. No finery adorned him. His uniform was pressed but plain, a metal glinting faintly on his chest, more scar than ornament. His boots echoed against the crystalline floor. To Lyra's surprise, he did not look at the gathered audience, nor at the guild master presiding over the ceremony. His gaze rested only on her, steady, unwavering. By decree of the guild, the presiding Selani intoned, voice amplified by hovering drones. This union binds debt to balance, house to house, name to name. The bride shall serve her husband as ledger decrees. The groom shall protect her as honor demands. The words made Lyra's jaw tighten. Serve, as if she were no more than ink scratched across a page. A ceremonial band, thin metal woven with glowing threads, was brought forth. The clerk lifted it between clawed fingers, ready to clasp it around her wrist and Elias's. Lyra whispered sharply, so only Elias could hear, "Do not mistake my silence for consent." Elias didn't flinch. Instead, he tilted his head toward her, speaking quietly beneath the swell of ceremonial chants. "Then speak. No one here expects you to pretend." She blinked at him, startled. Every instinct had told her to mask, to endure quietly as Selani women always had under the weight of guild law. Yet this human seemed to invite her defiance. The band clicked into place around their wrists, light flowing through its threads until it glowed faintly with both their pulses. The guild master's voice rang out, "Bound in name, bound in duty, bound in debt. So it is recorded." The audience murmured, approval, doubt, speculation. Elias lifted his wrist, the band gleaming. To the onlookers, it was a display of ownership, of triumph. But when his eyes found hers, his mouth curved into the faintest smirk, as if he were saying, "Let them believe what they want." Later, when the chamber cleared and the last whispers faded down the corridors, Lyra pulled the band from her wrist, wincing as its filaments resisted. Elias reached out but stopped short of touching her, his hand hovering. "You don't have to wear it when we're alone," he said softly. "It's just for them." She studied him, the faint scar on his temple, the quiet strength in his stance. It was theater, yes, but not his theater. He was playing their game to shield her. Her heart twisted with something dangerous, admiration. Yet she crushed it quickly, pressing the band into his hand. "Do not think this makes us allies. You are still the chain." Elias closed his fist over the band, the hum of the ship filling the silence between them. "Maybe," he said, his voice low, "but chains can be broken." Her breath caught. For the first time, she wondered, not if she could survive this union, but what it might awaken in her. Chapter 4, Fire in the Void. The Argent resolve drifted to the void like a cathedral of steel, her engines humming with quiet authority. In the observation gallery, Lyra pressed her palm against the glass, the starlight spilling over her features. For once, silence soothed her. No chanting clerks, no judging nobles, only the endless sweep of stars. That silence shattered. Klaxons wailed, red lights strobing across the chamber. The hum of the engines rose into a frantic growl as the ship lurched. Lyra staggered, gripping the railing as the intercom blared. Warning, hostile vessels detected, boarding parties inbound. The floor beneath her trembled. Out the window, sleek raider craft darted from the shadows, their hulls painted with the jagged symbols of debt collectors turned pirates. Grappling beams lanced out, sparking against the cruiser's shields. Her stomach turned cold. She had heard rumors. These raiders did not just reclaim debts. They claimed lives. And she was worth more than a fortune. The door to the gallery hissed open. Elias stormed in, uniform jacket half-fastened, a sidearm already in his hand. His expression was sharp, focused, but when his gaze found her, it softened just for a breath. "Stay behind me," he said. I... Her voice caught as the walls shuddered from a distant impact, the air filled with the metallic tang of stress fractures. They've come for me. Then they'll have to go through me first. Before she could answer, the corridor outside erupted with chaos. Raiders in segmented armor kicked through the doors, weapons glowing with volatile plasma. Elias moved like lightning. His blaster roared, bursts of energy lighting the gallery in staccato flashes. The recoil pushed him back half a step, but his aim was unerring. One raider fell, then another, bodies colliding in the weightless lurch as artificial gravity flickered. Lyra was thrown from her feet, the world tilting into disarray as gravity failed completely. Her mantle floated around her like spilled light. She gasped, spinning helplessly until a hand seized hers, calloused firm. Elias pulled her against him, anchoring them both against the railing with his other arm. "You all right?" he shouted over the alarms. Her breath shook. Why are you doing this?" Elias's jaw clenched as a plasma bolt whined past his ear, scorching the bulkhead. He shoved her behind a support beam, returning fire with lethal precision. "Because if they take you, you're gone. And I don't let people under my protection get taken. Not ever." Something inside her cracked. She had expected him to defend his property, his bargain, his prize. But there was no possession in his words, only conviction. A final raider lunged through the doorway, blade gleaming with violet plasma. Elias caught the strike on his forearm, gritting his teeth as heat seared his sleeve. With a swift motion, he slammed the butt of his weapon into the raider's helmet, sending the figure spinning in zero gravity. One last shot ended it, the sound echoing like thunder in the chamber. Silence returned, but it was a fragile silence, laced with smoke and the hiss of failing systems. Elias drifted, blood seeping from his arm, and caught Lyra by the shoulders to steady her. Her tears broke free, floating as silver droplets between them. Yet when his eyes met hers, pale, unwavering, human, her fears shifted into something fiercer. "You're hurt," she whispered. He gave a crooked smile, brushing away one of her tears with his thumb before it drifted. "Takes more than this to stop a human." In the dim glow of the emergency lights, her heart trembled. For the first time, she saw not the chain she had been bound to, but the shield that stood between her and the void. Chapter 5, Love Among Ruins. The escape pod had landed hard, skidding across the fractured surface of the asteroid before grinding to a halt in a spray of molten rock. Now it crouched at the edge of a jagged canyon, hull dented, its emergency beacon pulsing weakly into the void. Inside, the world was dim and trembling. Emergency lamps bathed the cramped chamber in a dull orange glow, shadows stretching across broken panels. The air smelled of scorched circuitry and recycled oxygen. Lyra sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, silver silk torn and stained with soot. Across from her, Elias leaned against the wall, his arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage that was already dark with blood. Despite his injury, his gaze was steady, fixed on the tiny fire flickering in the pod's thermal unit. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them was not empty. It was raw, filled with everything left unsaid during the chaos of the attack. Finally, Lyra broke it. Her voice was brittle, as though speaking risked shattering her. "All my life, I've been told I was a number, a calculation in a ledger. When the debt grew too heavy, they handed me away, like selling off a relic to keep their walls gilded." Her fingers dug into her mantle, twisting the fabric. "I thought marriage would be just another chain. But you fight as if you believe I'm worth more than my weight in credits. Why?" Elias shifted, wincing as his shoulder brushed the wall. His pale eyes found hers across the narrow pod. "Because you are. Because every life is. Humans, we fought wars over less than the right to decide our own fate. Where I come from, no one gets to own another person. Not anymore. His voice was quiet, but every word was iron. Her breath caught, as if she had stepped too close to a fire. She studied him. Not the scar at his temple, not the torn fabric at his sleeve, but the conviction in his gaze. A conviction she had never seen in her own people, who bound themselves in debts and hierarchies until their souls were shackled. "You speak of freedom as if it is air," she whispered. Elias gave a faint smile. "Maybe it is. You don't realize how much you need it until you're choking." The pod rattled as another fragment of asteroid debris struck the hull, but neither moved. Lyra's heart pounded, louder than the failing systems, louder than the crackle of the small flame. She reached across the narrow space, her fingers brushing his uninjured hand. He froze, then turned his palm upward, letting her lace her trembling fingers through his. The heat of his skin grounded her in a way the artificial fire could not. For the first time in cycles, her tears were not born of despair. They fell because something impossible was unfolding in the ruins of their lives. Hope. When Elias leaned forward, his lips brushing hers, it was not ceremonial, not dictated by guild decrees. It was raw, desperate, real. A vow not recorded in ledgers, but carved in the beating of two hearts against the silence of the void. Chapter 6. Breaking the Chains. The Argent resolve limped back into orbit over Vaith, her hull scarred and scorched, her banners tattered from the ambush. Shuttles swarmed to meet her, guild enforcers eager to reclaim order, eager to resume the ceremony of power. Lyra stood at the viewing port of the command deck, her reflection trembling in the glass. Only cycles ago, she had boarded this ship as a sacrifice, eyes downcast, spirit chained to her family's debts. Now she returned not as a token, but as someone who had bled, feared, and survived beside a human who had shown her what freedom meant. Behind her, Elias adjusted the cuff of his still-torn uniform. The scar on his temple caught the light, his pale eyes watchful but calm. He carried no weapon in his hand. Yet there was something sharper about him now, something that made even the armed enforcers hesitate. When the guild lords gathered in their crystalline hall, jeweled necks shimmering, voices dripping with disdain, they expected silence from Lyra. They expected her obedience. Instead, she stepped forward, silver mantle swaying like a banner of defiance. "My family's debt is no longer yours to wield," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "You traded me like coin. But debts are chains, and chains can be broken." The lords laughed, a chorus of jeweled throats. One hissed, "You think your word absolved a legacy written in ledgers?" Elias moved beside her, placing a datapad on the central dais. Its holographic screen flared to life, projecting records, evidence of guild corruption, stolen credits, debts fabricated to keep entire houses enslaved. His voice was measured, unflinching. "Your ledgers aren't just cruel. They're false. And now everyone will know." The hall erupted. Clerks stammered. Dignitaries recoiled. The guild's carefully polished chains of power cracked under the weight of truth. Lyra felt the stares turn, not toward her as property, but toward her as something new, a woman who had stood against her own people's bondage and refused to bow. She felt the band of light around her wrist flicker as she unclasped it, the thread sparking before dimming out. She placed it on the dais, her hands steady. "You will not own me. Not now, not ever again." The hall fell silent. Even the hum of the engines seemed to pause. Elias turned to her then, his voice pitched low. For her ears alone. "You're free." Her throat tightened. The words, so simple and human, felt large in the chamber, larger than the stars. She reached for his hand. No cuffs, no contracts, no guild decrees. Just fingers entwined by choice. As they walked out of the crystalline hall, the banners behind them fluttered in the artificial wind. No longer a shroud, but a backdrop to something unrecorded in any ledger, a bond of equals. For the first time, Lyra's eyes no longer held tears. They held fire. The ardent resolve sailed quietly through the stars, her scarred hull glinting like a survivor's badge. In the observation deck, the viewport stretched wide, framing alien constellations scattered across the void. Neon reflections from distant city worlds shimmered faintly on the glass, their lights like whispers of civilization still bound by debt and power. Lyra stood there, her mantle gone, her wrists bare. No cuffs, no contracts, only the hum of the engines beneath her feet and the steady pulse of artificial gravity grounding her. She had walked into this ship as property, but she stood here now as something freer, fiercer. Elias approached, his steps quiet against the alloy floor. The scar at his temple caught the starlight as he stopped beside her. For a moment, they only watched the galaxy breathe, together. "They'll come after us," she murmured. "Let them," Elias said, his voice low but sure. "Humans don't run from chains. We break them." She turned to him then, eyes shining with fire that once had only been tears. "And what if I told you, I don't want to be free of you?" The silence stretched, but not with fear, only with the weight of what had grown between them. Elias reached for her hand, callous fingers threading with hers. "Then," he said softly, "you're not bound to me. You choose me." Their foreheads touched as the stars wheeled on, infinite and unyielding. Two souls, one Selani, one human, standing together against a universe that had tried to own them both. And in that fragile, defiant moment, love was more powerful than any ledger.